I'm Rick Munn. This is No Risk, No Reward Media, and I'm happy to be joined for the first time today on this channel by none other than Councillor Tom McDonnell from Newbridge in County Kildare. Tom was successful last year in the local elections that were held last summer in Ireland, and he got elected on the Kildare County Council. So welcome, Tom. How are you doing today?
Very grand. I'm grand. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, it's nice to meet someone from up the north and have a chat and whatever. Yeah. Good stuff.
Well, you know what? What's happening in the north is happening in the south. It's happening in the east. It's happening in the west. It's happening in the middle. It's happening everywhere across Ireland at the minute. And one of the things I wanted to focus on with you this morning, because it's something that you're very aware about, and you're also a builder by trade, homelessness in Ireland, the lack of housing, and also the conversion of a lot of accommodation in Ireland to IPAS centres to house so-called asylum seekers. Now, this started off in places like Dublin. It moved, the big cities were being converted, office blocks were being converted into IPAS centres. People weren't too happy about it, but then it started spreading out into the towns and the villages and the smaller places in Ireland, so much so now that some places, their populations have more than doubled overnight, because there's been busloads of men brought in and planted into hotels or B&Bs or purpose-built IPAS centres. What's your take on it in terms of the way it's proliferated, or the way that it has spread, even over the last 12 months? Has it even taken you a little bit by surprise how far-reaching it is now?
Well, I think I got involved in this about 3 years ago. In the state where I was living in, I was asleep like everybody else, and there'll be people watching in here, I suppose, on this that are asleep to what's going on, because you trust media, you trust government, you trust everyone. And at that time, 3 years ago, I did. I just said, yeah, get on with it, get your day's work done. The government look after everything else. The media tell you if there's that and wrong, and then where they started, they put in, they were going to put modular units in the green in the States where I'm connected to, where I live. And someone came to the door and was talking to me about it. And I remember I'm into the greyhounds and all that. And I was going through the greyhounds. A friend of mine is a couple of good greyhounds. His groupies, Kathleen, were one of the best greyhounds in the world, fastest greyhound in the world, Robert Gleason. And they had a dog running that night. And it was a Friday night, and there was a meeting organised in the estate on the basketball court, summer's night, and so I was 50-50, would I go or would I go to the meeting? And I said, geez, I have to go to this meeting. I wanted to go to the dogs because I had a couple of dogs running. So I went to the meeting, and it was sort of, everyone was talking, and there was a couple of Fianna Fáil councillor turned up that night. There was a representative there from Sinn Féin, and everyone was sort of to go and trying to get the platform to speak about it. But anyways, there was a girl there, Noreen O'Shea, and she was saying, look, don't trust the government, don't trust anyone here, you're representing a party, we're people, So anyway, I sort of got a hold of people then and started forming a bit of a committee, and we got a committee, had a good few meetings in our house, and we started checking out things with the freedom of information. They told us that these would be, with the crisis, it would only last, with the Ukrainians coming, it would only last 6 or 7 months. Mm-hmm. The war will be over, lads. All these modular units that are going in, 39 or 40 of them, will be removed, and the war will be over. Like it was 6 months, 9 months. And I had the government officials, I had probably the next Minister for Agriculture, Martin Hayden, and at the local Tracy Dwyer and Peggy Dwyer, and they're all Fine Gael, and they were in my house, and they were explaining to me, Tom, look, be calm, this is only for the Ukrainian crisis. So, and I was adamant, I says, under no circumstances they're going in here. This is young children are in here. We don't know who these people are. Mm-hmm. They're coming in, they're unvetted people. Oh, they're fleeing war. I says, why are they bringing the problems here? why aren't they bringing them to like Western Ukraine? Like
Mhm.
it's like from here to Paris, from the Donbass to West.
Yes.
About 14. I was estimating it's about 1,400 kilometers.
Mhm.
And I says, why don't they shift them over where there's no war? You know, why bring them to Ireland? Anyways, so we had a girl in, and she was civil servant and in the committee, and we asked her to do a bit of research and freedom of information. So we got a freedom of information, but it was difficult to, you know, when you don't know anything about this cracking, you're not into anything political, or you just live in your work in your normal day, and you don't know what's going on. So we checked out, and the way it was worded in the email, and it says the camp would be owned by the government, right? And it would be there for ongoing crisis, wars, climate change. And I read that, I said, this is. I had a big breakup in the committee then, because when I get information, I like to get it straight out to the people, because there's about 600 houses or whatever in the area. And I went about my own, and I had a bit of a row in the committee, because I was chairman of the committee, and I says, people need to know, we can't be waiting until next Tuesday night and having a meeting, and I need to get that information out straight away. So I got it, went printed it out, I got it broken down, written out, exactly what was going on. So it was going to be like a camp. It was
Mhm.
just that's what they were setting up in our state, like they're setting up now in Floods Cross between Naas. They have 1,000 in there. They have Clonmel. They were at Lone. They were pushing. So that's the way I read the email. That it was on for ongoing. It was going to be owned by the government run, and it was going to be a feeder. It was going to be a feeder for IPAS.
Mhm.
So that's the way I read it, and I got that distributed out. We had a round, it was in the committee, and then on goes. We were on prime time then, but we're pure greenhorns. We didn't want to talk on television, you know. It's the last thing you want to do. But they staged us that night on prime time. Um, they ran the crisis, so they're putting this out to the Irish public,
Mhm.
right? We were probably one of the first in Ireland to be getting one of those camps built in the estate, and they pushed out the crisis in Ukraine, which was horrific at the time. And you know, people getting blown up,
Mhm.
and these people are very, you know, terrible situation, and the Ukraine crisis is unreal. You know, a
Mhm.
real war, people getting blown to smithereens, and shocking. And then they were playing us on bringing us onto the TV, onto the national public, RT, people that were like hadn't a clue. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't even on like a video to you, or had wouldn't have even done a TikTok or anything. So
Mhm.
you'd be afraid to open your mouth. You're really traumatized. You know,
Mhm.
it was a traumatic situation, because there was a girl to go on, and I ended up, she wouldn't go on. She was nearly crying. Poor girl, she was working civil servant. She wouldn't go on. And we had a few meetings and to explain about the sewage in the area, uh, all the problems we had flooding in the area. So we fought the government on those grounds. We had fight them with the gloves on or fight them with the gloves off. But
Mhm.
I decided that we need to make a representation that the site wasn't feasible as regarding it was a flood risk. So, and I won it on that. And we went to Roderick O'Gorman's office in Dublin. He was Minister for Children and Integration. And I went up to his office, continued with the four of us, and I made representation. I showed him that the lake and all that is called Lakeside Park, and
Mhm.
that the lake was a false lake that was created to get the water from about 8 estates across under the railway line, the main line to Cork from Dublin. So made a representation. I says I'm not going to fight it on you know that we don't want IPAS or we don't want whatever. People fleeing war, refugees, that the site wasn't suitable. So we won it on that grounds, that it was a flood risk and the storage problems and everything. So that was where that stood, and that's where I started in this. I then yeah, go
Well,
on.
yeah, I was going to say, right, a couple of things that you said I want to pick up on and go back on a wee bit. So, one of the criticisms that's leveled at men like yourself who take a stand against these IPAS centres is that you're racist, you are far right, you're xenophobic, you don't like foreigners, okay, and they try and tar people with that brush if they show any concerns over these centres going into their local neighbourhoods. And let me put it to you, and this is what my belief has been, right? I've been talking to you now for, well, we've been talking on air for what, 10 or 15 minutes, but we had a good yarn before we started recording this. Now, I think you and we get on all right. I think you're a decent enough fella. But if you were to tell me, or my local council was to tell me, he said, Rick, there's 100 men coming up and they're going into modular homes behind your house tomorrow, and one of them's Tom McDonnell from Newbridge in County Kildare and 99 of his mates, I would be concerned about that. The first thing I'd be saying is, I'm not going to be asking where you're from. I'm going to be asking what you're doing and who are you. I don't care what colour your skin is, and I don't care what your country of origin is. I'd be thinking, why are they coming to live behind my house? Why is there 100 of them? And what are they going to do all day? And who are they? How do I know that they're not criminals? These are natural concerns that people have. And when people have started to express their natural concerns that there's a centre going into their back doorstep with full of men that they don't know who they are, really where they're from, and they just have to take it that the guards have said, aye, they're okay, we have vetted them, there's no criminals in there, take them at their word for it. You can't do that. It's your natural instinct to be wary of strangers in your area. Doesn't matter where they're from. So do you find that as well? Did you find that when you guys started to oppose this, that they started to throw the insults and say, well, you're just a right-winger, Tom, or you're just a racist or a fascist or whatever they wanted to call you because you were simply concerned?
Got all that, absolutely. And like, I was a man that have traveled. Like, I worked in Paris, I worked in Euro Disney was built that. I worked in London, I worked at Southampton. It's like, I remember the first job I worked in Park Lane, off Park Lane, and I was a greenhorn just off the boat from Ireland in '84. And we were down, got a job with a subby and Kerry subby, and I was working with two Jamaicans, and like, these people would be totally alien to me, and conversation, and we got on okay, no problem.
And you'd have been alien to them too, but that's the thing. They'd have been looking at you as just as much as an alien as you would be them, because that's just human nature.
And because it was a big change for me coming out of the west of Ireland. You wouldn't have met black people at the time. You'd like the circus would come to town or whatever, and there might be that'd be it. That'd be about, or there might be a black surgeon in the hospital in Castlebar or something like that, and you would have had very little interaction with people. But then as I went along, and sure, you take everyone. Whether you go to Belfast or you go to Derry, whether you go to London or wherever, you take the lad, like I'm taking you. I don't know anything about you, don't know about your background. I take it as I converse with you and see you okay. And and that's the same as I did with them. And they were grand. They were sound. Played soccer then with there were lads they were from everywhere. They were from India, they were from, they were Scottish.
All
lads.
over.
There was lads there from Jamaica. Their parents were from Jamaica, and we got on unreal. I remember there was a guy there, Leroy, he played soccer with us. He did a massive throw, and I was 6'4", and this was playing soccer. I played soccer and Gaelic, and he'd throw the ball into the penalty spot from the sideline, and I was 6'4", bang. I'd often scored 3 goals.
The dream team.
It's like some comic, It was like, I'm 6'4", and I'd pick up a small lad and bang, I'd rattle in the back of the net. And but sure, we drank, had a few pints together afterwards. Oh, this is and a lot of them people in the media, because I confronted a lot of them about that racism and all that. A lot of them hadn't even travelled out of Ireland. They worked for RTE and they worked for the Lothian Radio. They never worked with these people. I worked with them in the buildings, played football with them. So I knew and lived with them in Watford where I lived. And I lived next door to people from, one side of me was people from India. The other side were Italians. So I was well used to people from all around the world. and
So you're not, that's the point, you see, and I'm the same. I have, because of the work that I've been doing over the years and speaking out against this, people have said, you're a racist, you don't like foreigners. I spent 11 years traveling back and forth to East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. Two of my closest friends, one of them's a Kenyan, the other one's a Ugandan fella. I can speak fluent Kiswahili. Taught myself to speak that when I go out there and I live with their families, I'm able to converse with people. So you can't call me a racist or say I don't like foreigners when I spent so much time there, but I raise questions. And if you are asking questions and getting shut down, Tom, that suggests to me that there's something sinister going on in the background, because the truth can stand up to questioning, but lies and schemes cannot. You get me?
Yeah, when you speak from the heart, you speak true. You don't. So I don't have to pause when I speak to you. I don't have to think of some lad might say something that I said something. I speak straight from the heart, and I treat every man and every woman as an equal. And if they are from Mayo or from Kildare and they're a BOLEX or whatever, they are. And if they're a nice person, they're a nice person. And the same if they're from Africa and they're a nice person. Or they're a bad one, they're a bad one. So racism doesn't exist in Ireland, because I've been out and about, and with all these protests, I must have been at 300 or whatever, and I've never ever come across. Well, I came across one person that was a little bit, whatever, and I would check them. I would say, look, hey, that's intolerable. I don't want to be standing against anyone racist. And but as I said, that was one person. Coming into interacting with hundreds of thousands of people, like I would.
You see, Tom, here's the other thing. Here's the other side to this coin as well. Something that you've been very passionate about over the years, and one of the things that you're trying to make a change in is, housing and homelessness, okay? Because you're a builder by trade, and you know yourself that Ireland has a chronic shortage of houses being built, social housing, whatever, residential housing. Very difficult for people to get onto the property ladder. Even to rent the property these days is getting tougher and tougher and tougher. And when you look at the Irish homeless situation, you're talking over 10,000, well over 10,000 men, women and children that are Irish that have no home to call their own. They're staying in temporary accommodation, they're staying in homelessness shelters. And yet, when you see how things are happening, I'll just make this point and you can fire it back at me, but when you see the way it seems to be government is bending over backwards to clear hotels out, to put modular homes up, state-of-the-art modular homes, and put people into them. Yeah, are you not right in asking yourself the question, well, why didn't they do that for the Irish homeless over the last 5 or 10 years? Because it shows you that they can do it if they want to do it, but it just shows you that there's been no will there to do it for the people that have been living in the areas.
Yeah, well, it's you were saying 10,000. There'd be about 5,000 children, and I these are desperate homeless, would be between 14,500 and 16,500. So they could sort out the crisis in the morning.
Correct.
Like I was outside the Dáil. I used to go up to protest outside the Dáil. They'd be saying you might turn up. There might be 10 people protesting, and then there might be 100. There might be 2, and you'd see these people going in, and their party lines. You'd Social Democrats, all about the working class people for profit, Sinn Féin, and then you'd have the mainstream centre, what we used to think were centre right, like Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and the Greens or whatever they are. I don't know what they are anyway. I don't think
they're nearly extinct now. There's only one of them left.
I think that came. Yeah, but anyway, you'd hear, especially the left side, you'd say, why are you on about house? I used to go up to them straight up. Holly Cairns, is it Holly? Because I keep a few greyhounds, and I says to her, Holly, can I have a word with you? And yeah, okay. And Holly, I just want to know if you had an investigation into the greyhounds or traceability on greyhounds. You headed that, and that was all pushed in RTE. And I says, how come you don't have an investigation like this about the vax deaths, the vaccine deaths? This is another thing. How come, I don't want to go off topic there, but I work in the graveyard. As a councillor, you're always put to different things. No water in the graveyard. The graveyard's upside down. No one will do it. And I've organised a committee, and I get a few lads, and we go up and we'll be cleaning up. And I remember in particular, I was up there one day, and I seen this woman. So I'd like to tell them, I organised. There was a 40 square metre roof shed, and me being a builder, I ran the water off the gutter into a tank, and I created a temporary supply of the water. Mm-hmm. And it was middle of, and I was only elected, it was probably July, August or whatever. And I seen the woman up, and I was just going up to her, and I went within 40 yards of her, and I says, look, ma'am, we've got water for you down temporary, down at the bottom. And I knew she was upset. And I just, oh yeah, thank you, you're great. She says, it's well done, thank you. And then I knew she was getting very upset. I says, it's a lonely place, And I was up in the graveyard on my own there, and she was there, and I was in 40, 50 yards. And I knew she was upset. And I sort of backed off. And I looked at her at the grave where she was attending. Mm-hmm. And it was his family member, and I see little windmills on the grave, and I wasn't used to that. And I says, what's that? So after she left, the poor woman left, about an hour afterwards, I was cleaning up down the back of the graveyard, and I went back up, and I looked at the grave. Her little girl was 10 years of age.
Ugh.
I says, so then there was a guy behind me, Danny Foxy. He worked in the bookshop, and he's a neighbour of mine. And he was in the grave behind it, 35. Mm-hmm. Joe Malone, another friend of mine, his daughter, 47. I'm talking within a few meters. Like, these were within meters of each other. The 10-year-old, 35-year-old, and the 47-year-old were all within, 15 graves. Mm-hmm. They were all there. And then I looked at the rest of them, and they were all under 47. I counted up 25 graves out of something like 56, 58 graves for all young people.
And you see, you're on the ground, so you're seeing this happening with your own two eyes, and that's one of the things that I'd said to you before we started recording this, that you can't deny the evidence of your own eyes, especially and what we're talking about today here to do with homelessness. You can't deny the evidence of your own eyes if you're living in a homeless shelter or you're living in temporary accommodation. It's there every day. Or you can't deny the evidence of your own eyes if you're looking out from the front of your house and you can see a wall being erected, concrete wall with steel surrounds around it with floodlights on it, and watching cranes coming in every day delivering modular houses in there. You can't deny that. And back to what I was saying about the Irish homeless situation, you're talking about, I said over 10,000, you're talking maybe 15, pushing up towards 20,000 people are in that position. And then you look at something, for example, this is an article that I saw yesterday, Clondalkin. IPAS contractor seeks an approval for a complete designation as an asylum accommodation. This is an article that was running Gripped Media. So Independent Ireland Councillor Linda de Courcy, who represents Clondalkin on South Dublin County Council, has reported that a new application has been lodged with the council for a Dulcane House on Monastery Road in Clondalkin Village. The application seeks approval for the change of use from an office to a temporary international protection accommodation and associated site work. So here we have a big office block sitting in Clondalkin. I'm sure there's homeless people in Clondalkin that have been sitting in temporary accommodation for a long time, but all of a sudden, planning permissions being sought to turn a whole office block into self-contained units, and I'm sure they'll be nice. I'm sure they'll not spare any expense when it comes to kitting these places out, and they'll do the best of workmanship in there. But again, the question has to be asked, why are they acting like this now for an IPAS centre when the homeless situation's right on their doorstep and has been for the last however many years?
Yeah, there's no interest in the Irish, it's because there's money in IPAS. There's no money in putting up. They create the situation. Like you're talking about, and figures do drive me mad, because people talk about there is around the 15,000 or whatever. Yeah, So you can play figures. You can say it's 14, you can say it's 18, you can say it's 20 or whatever. But they're Mickey Mouse figures. They're not the figures at all. What about the lads that are living on, sleeping on the couch?
Yeah.
What about the girl? She's living up in the attic or in the shed out the back of the house. Her mom, she has a baby, and they've nowhere to live. Like I'm contacted there, there's people built. They didn't go through the council or whatever. They built a place there in Kildare town. They put up a temporary a modular home. Like they'd done it out of their own pocket. They built the whole thing, and they were told to take it down.
Yes.
They contacted her, and they were to demolish it or we'll demolish it. That was what they were told that would be happening. So there's a fierce homeless problem. They talk about these figures, and I don't like those figures, because the reason I don't like them, it doesn't reflect the proper figures. The proper figures are 300,000, 200,000. Talk about the people that are living, they're 25, 30 years of age, they're living with their mum and dad, they can't afford to rent, they can't afford to buy. Like rents in Newbridge were for a one bed flat were about £700-800 10 years ago, euros. Now that's 1,500, two beds 1,700. So you take the wages, anyone's coming home there at 500 or 600, whatever they're coming home with, they can't afford to rent those places. And they're not available to rent. So they are only going one way, and that's up through the roof. And 1,700 is going to become 1,900. 1,900 is going to become 21, 22. And anyone that's sitting on these properties and letting them out, they're delighted, because they're in a great situation. They probably own their own house, they own the flat, and it's the money generator. But it's so what happens with all them? Like my kids, I have four children, or four boys, sorry, and a girl. My daughter went to Germany, Frankfurt. She says, I'm not waiting around here. There's no friends. There's no nightclub, and there's no nightlife. It's very restricted. And that's another part of it they've created. All the bars and drinks so dear. There's no nightclub, and like there was like 20 years ago, 15 years ago. They seem to have stopped that, especially in a big town like Newbridge. You should have 2 or 3 nightclubs. So all their friends are leaving. I have 2 sons that went to Australia. Same thing, all their friends are out there, so they're not hanging around. They can't, Dad, we couldn't rent it. We can't buy a place. We're not getting rent, so we're not hanging around. And there's all we see is immigrants and more immigrants. There's no Irish life like it used to be years ago. That's gone, and we're not hanging around. So it seems to be a massive replacement of.
That's tragic. Let's see, listening to you talking there, right? That's tragic, not just because it's young people going, but that's 3 out of your 5 kids, at least 3. One's away to Frankfurt, 2 are away to Australia. So it's not just Irish young people are going, but it's your family's going. And I was talking yesterday to a lady based up in the Glens of Antrim, and she has a young son, and I'm going to try and talk to him next week on this channel, because I want to get the perspective from a young person. Because to be honest with you, most of the people I talk to are old hands like you and me. We're a bit long in the tooth. We've been around the block a few times and took a few knocks to the head. But it's nice to talk to the younger ones in their 20s, maybe their early 30s, and say, well, what do you see? What do you see the future as? It's okay for me to talk about it or you to talk about it. We've been round the block. But what about if you're just coming up? It must be a bad position. Like when 3 out of your 5, that's what 60% of your kids are away. What about the other 2, by the way, if you don't mind me asking? What do they look at things?
One at home, and Sunday, he's in Waterford, and he built a house. He's with a girl down there. He's a physiotherapist, and so he has decided to stay. Luckily, he's settling. He seems to be settled down there, so it's great. But my other lad, he was good. They were all good footballers. They're all played inter-county and whatever. They were top class footballers and good athletes and runners and everything. And I keep telling them, you want to be getting a family now. They have girlfriends over in Australia and whatever. You're coming back, and And I used to be saying to them, come on back and, set up a family, and I'm not getting any younger and whatever. And Queeby now, I'll be close to there, and he says, oh, Dad, I'm coming back and I'm coming back. And then in the last year, he says to me, Dad, I don't think I'm going back. He says, couldn't I couldn't rear a family over there. Ireland's changed since I just left. He says we're only talking about 6, 7 years. He says I've been talking to my friends. He says it's not Ireland anymore. And he says I don't want to be bringing up my children, in that sort of environment. Where a lot of Muslims have moved into the areas, and they're I don't want to be rearing my children in that sort of environment. Like, we're Irish people, we're Indigenous Irish people. It's our country. Why are we bending over to this stuff? Islam, and that's not Ireland. I want my children to be reared in.
You see the
We're
flip. You see the flip side of that too. But I mean, like, people have their heritage, they have their culture. It would be like, again, it would be like 100 boys from Newbridge in County Kildare, say, moving out to somewhere in East Africa and setting up a village. All right, and there's 50 people in the village, and you and 99 of your mates come over and you set up your houses in the village, and you start drinking Guinness that nobody knows what it is, and you start playing Gaelic that nobody knows what that is, or you maybe start speaking Irish and nobody knows what that is. Those people might feel a little bit uncomfortable going, who are these fellas? What's going on here? This isn't the village that I grew up in. This isn't the area that I grew up in. So it goes both ways. And, some people are more tolerant to other cultures. Some people just like things the way that they've always been. Everybody's different. And the point is that people maybe don't have the choice anymore. And I've seen big changes in Belfast even over the last 5 years. I worked in Belfast every day between 2010 and about 2020. So for 10 years, I was traveling in and out every day. I was in the city centre every day. Then the whole COVID thing came and we were sent to work from home. So I wasn't back there for 3 years, and then I never went back. I quit the job and I started out in broadcasting. So I hadn't really been in Belfast for 5 years, from 2020 until 2025, more or less now. And when I go into that place now, the whole city centre has died a death. So many shops are closed down. The place is absolutely ruined. And taking a taxi ride through various parts of the city, it's unrecognisable from what it was even 5 years ago. So there are big changes happening. There are people standing up and trying to make a stand to keep their communities intact and to try and look after their own constituents like yourself who are maybe homeless, trying to get them accommodation, trying to get them sorted out if they're getting it tight. So the question is, just as I suppose we'll wrap this up, you stood last year as an independent and you were successful getting elected to Kildare County Council. So at the time last year, there was a whole rigmarole with the mainstream press saying the rise of the far right, and we'll have to but watch out because these boys, people like you, people, thugs like you, are rising up through the ranks, and it could be the end. It could be the end for Ireland. But you haven't done any harm. You're trying to help your local community. You're out there in the graveyard. You're doing work. You're trying to do building projects. You're trying to push things along. What is going to have to happen? Was it a damp squib last year? Is there too much fragmentation in the so-called far right? What needs to be done to mobilise this beginnings of a movement a little bit further?
Well, that's what I was saying. We're destroyed by media, and we're destroyed by every outlet in media. Like, for the local papers, it's the local radio station, it's the national media. Every time you step up, that you're man enough to step up to what's going on, you're looked upon, or they'll find something to knock you with. You took up a tricolour, an Irish flag. How dare you?
I saw you last year with that, and they called you a far right man. Now, you're an Irish man, are you not? Lifting the Irish flag and saying you're proud of it, but that now is enough to label you an extremist.
That was like an act of war. And I says to him, I'm an Irish man. That's what, like that's what Michael Collins, all them lads, they fought for Ireland. They fought for our independence from Britain. And they had that flag as a represent who they were. And what are you on about? Me flying the flag?
I know, I
What
saw that. I saw that.
flag? In
And
my
then you
own
went ahead, you actually took it one step further. I think you said, when I die, I want this flag in my coffin. And that was like throwing petrol onto the fire. What? You can't, what do you mean you want this flag in your coffin when you die? What do you mean by that? What's the
see
big deal?
what they have done, they're removing nationalism. Where when I be in England, in London, you see the Union Jack,
Yeah,
and I would have no problem with anyone with the Union Jack in England. I say in London, you see it around, and I say whatever, it's their country,
their
it's their
country.
flag, it's their what they're all about. Yeah, fair play to them. And I go to America and I see them with the stars and stripes. I would say every house. I said one and two, but I said most houses in New York and all around have their flag, and they're proud of their proud of their country. And how dare you try to remove? See, what they're doing is they're removing nationalism or anything to do with, because this is a diverse, multicultural society, Tom. That you're like, no, it's not. That's what you're creating. I do not want what you're creating, and I never will want what you're creating. I have no problem with 10%, 12%, 13% people here from other countries, and they'll always say, oh, well, but we're up on 30, 35% now. We're in an awful,
And
awful.
coming in legally. And coming in, because that's another thing that I'd seen. I'd seen an interview that you had done, and you made this very, very clear. You said you had no problem with people coming in on an immigrant visa as long as they're vetted. They're maybe coming in, they're coming to work, they're coming to contribute to society. But it's the undocumented asylum seekers that are the big issue here. And on the flag business as well, by the way, let me tell you something. I told you I'd been traveling over to Kenya quite a lot over a period of time. And there was a friend of mine who ran a school that was registered with the Kenyan government. And in the middle of that wee school, out in the bush in the middle of nowhere, they had a big flagpole, and there was always a Kenyan flag flying on that flagpole. And I remember one time I come over and I brought him a couple of flags over from our end of the woods. And I says, listen, stick one of them up for a bit of crack someday. The kids will love it. He says, no chance. He said, if the local council or the local police saw us flying a flag other than the Kenyan flag in a Kenyan school, he said, they could come in and shut us down. I could end up being arrested. That's just the way it is. Very strong nationalism, as you can understand that.
Yeah, and the same. And from when I worked in Paris, the French, they're very nationalist people, very proud. And I admire nationalism. I admire be proud to be France, and and they want you to speak in French and whatever, but you try, and when you try, they can speak English, and we basically can just speak the one language and a bit of Irish. But anyway, they're very, every country you go are very nationalist. It's their country, and they're proud of their country, and that's everything. It goes right down through your soul, from your toes to your head. You're an Irish nationalist, you're a French nationalist, you're whatever. You're American. Like, to try and take that away from you is unbelievable. And that will never happen with me. That will, and I be like, there's a good few people of my mindset. We're not going away.
No.
We're not going to let our country. We're not going to let. This is a see. That's another thing I brought up when I got elected about. I said the word breeding, but I said it on purpose just to create a bit of a spin. We we are only the women of this country are only having 1.5 babies. On radio, or like one family will have one of two. I came from a family of 10. And all old Irish families had that big. And the woman's place, see, they've disconnected the woman from the children totally. And this is big, big dangers. So they're off to work. Anyone living in Newbridge, they're up in the morning at 5:30, 4 to 6. They're on that motorway to Dublin. they're pushing the children into, if they have one or two children, if they can afford childcare, they put them into childcare, right? And they're gone all day. They don't get back till 7 o'clock in the evening, 8 o'clock. No interaction. So they're at these schools, and what's going on in these schools then? They're pushing this left agenda, this, this pride flags everywhere. There's a lot of, you say, well, that's not the
It's
old
not the
Irish.
Irish way.
No, it's not there in a way, because years ago, like my dad had a couple of jobs and whatever, and the woman raised the family and she looked after them. She made sure they had a good religion, they had good foundations, they had good values. They were very solid. We were very solid in every way. We came from a farming background. You made sure you were doing your chores. You come home in the evening if you hadn't your chores done, or if the mother says, Tom wouldn't do this or Tom wouldn't do that. You just would get a clip around the ear and that'd be it. So you made sure the cows were milked and the cattle were fed, and if you had any vegetables seeds, you had to go to the bog or whatever. You just done it. It was made sure it was a way of life. And kids have great value, and you great respect for your neighbours, and you great respect for older people, and you interacted. See, that's another thing they've taken away from us too. They've taken the community spirit away, And that's why, how do we fight this going forward? And I feel with all this Sky Sport and all this, everything is beamed into the house with all that Sky, that to get the people back in the community. Now, tonight I'm running a self-defense class in Newbridge Town Hall at 8 o'clock. And then we have family or health and well-being. We have a girl coming in talking about herbs, using herbs and all different things. She's a beekeeper. She's talking about all. So that's something community-based.
Yes.
Reconnect the community. Totally get them together. I feel they've just got them onto the couch, get home from work, get on the couch, watch Man United playing Liverpool. Who gives a damn who wins?
I know.
At the end of the day, it's about your country. I was big into GAA, played soccer, but I'm not interested. I'm not interested in GAA for main reason is they're following this agenda because they won't let you go to a club match now. If it's a championship club match, you can't go unless you pay by card online. You can't go to an inter-county match anywhere in Ireland unless you
use the card.
So I'm not going. I played inter-county football. I represented London. I represented Great Britain in a mini tournament in Dublin. And I represented Mayo before I went to. I will not go to matches because I will not pay by card. And then we see in Croke Park who's using it. They have Muslims in it. They won't let us into it for anything. Unless we pay in and paying by card. But I see the Muslims taking it over now, regular, doing their prayers and
prayer meetings.
Yeah, so they're complete sellouts. They're completely turned against all the GA, every club and every inter-county stadium. They were all built out of our pockets. So they've turned their back on us. The GA in particular, I see their grassroots, and they have turned it. You see the likes of Joe Brawley and these fellas. Absolute sellout to Ireland, absolutely no. I used to love listening to him, bantering away because he was very outspoken, and from Derry he came out of a very strong Republican family, father and mother, and then you see the likes of him turning on us, absolute.
You gotta wonder, don't you, what it was that made them tick the suit, and tick the turn coat. And one thing I'll pick up on, and I just want to close it in this because there's an awful lot more we could talk about. Literally, we could talk all day about this, but I want to try and keep it bite-sized that people can take this in and digest it. And maybe if it hasn't been too traumatic for you, we can talk again at another date and cover other issues that are going on. But one thing that you said, because I'm all about solutions. We can talk about problems till we're blue in the face, but if you don't provide solutions, then what are you doing? You're just talking. And one of the things you said that I think people need to really pick up on is reconnecting outside the house with other human beings, not online, not on groups, social media groups. Fair enough, if I need to talk to you today, I can't just get in the car and drive down to Kildare. You can't just come up to County Down today. So this technology can serve a purpose. But if I lived in your town or village, or I lived 5 or 10 miles from your house, I'd like to think that I could call round and we could record something in person, or we could meet up and go for a coffee or go for a pint or whatever it happened to be, reconnecting physically with people, getting out of the house, get away from the TV set. As you've said tonight, you're running a self-defence class in a local community centre. Then you've got somebody coming in to talk about health, taking care of your body. You said your young lads were good footballers. They ran, they took care of themselves. You're not seeing that anymore, Tom, and I think you're right. They're trying to splinter the communities, and they're trying to drive wedges between people, and they're trying to get us to stay indoors and get unhealthy and get depressed and get fat.
Yeah, no, well, that's a massive thing. And we were doing a food bank. I used to do a food bank for the homeless there. I started that myself and Chris McCormick, a friend of mine there from Newbridge, and we were feeding. And then you go, and I'd be putting 80, 90, €100. I mean, I didn't even toss. You know what I mean? You could spend it in the pub. I don't drink or smoke, so and you get a great feeling out of helping the homeless,
Yeah.
And yeah, you'd say people, oh, look at him there, he's helping all the junkies, the druggies, and I says, they're all of God's children. You must give them a chance. They'll change. They could change in the morning. People hit rock bottom to come back, but it's all about building the community, and that's our only way back. It's not running up to Dublin, marching and get the government out. Rebuild that community. That community spirit that was there 30, 40, 50 years ago. It was all about the community. They've disconnected that community spirit and that connection. So our best fight, and in every town in Ireland, that's what I was saying, and the movement going forward, us people, the indigenous Irish people, the people of Ireland, going forward, I see what I'm doing in Newbridge, that we do that in every town in Ireland. Don't disconnect.
Yeah.
Reconnect. So people always say, oh, what can you do? And I can't do it. Anyone can do it. Anyone can do what I do. I just go down, get the town hall. You can do it through facilities in any council. You connect, ask for permission to use the hall, get the community, get a meeting in there. Try and help. There's been a surge in crime with all this going on, and the women are very vulnerable. I was down in Aisling Murphy's memorial there last Sunday week. I went to Knock last Sunday. There was a protest there. IPAS Centre's been in Knock, but I went to Aisling Murphy's 3-year anniversary down in Tullamore, and there was thousands at it. It was massive, and it was. Yeah, she was left very vulnerable. That's why I come up with the self-defense classes. And the women, they're really up for it. They're frightened. They're frightened, and you don't hear this. See, this is another thing you don't hear. The women are not going to go running up onto social media and say, "I'm afraid to go out," but they are afraid to go out. They tell me they're afraid to go out, and even girls in the council, that work over there, says to me, "Tom, fair play to you," and. We're doing that.
Well, the key word then to take away from this is reconnect. That's what we've got to be about, reconnection. And it doesn't necessarily mean joining a political party or running as a councillor. It can just be being more active in your community, being out and about more, and networking with the people that are in your neighbourhood or in your town or village. Because if you united we stand, divided we fall. So we've got to reconnect, and I think that's the message of the hour, really, from what we're talking about here. We need to not disconnect, but we need to reconnect.
See, you have to be positive. Everything you have to do is you get up in the morning, you be positive, get that negativity or anyone that's negative around you, get them out of your way, because they're going to bring you down. And as positive is what I'm doing in Newbridge. Naas do it. Kilcullen do it, let Clonmel do it, let everyone, and then we'd become a national body then. That's where we're about. It's all about the community. That's what everything is about. It's about building community strength. That's what Ireland was built on. It was always, everyone knew everyone. And now in the modern world, with the phones, they're all on the phone.
Yeah.
They're all, the young lads are all on these computer games. You need to get them out. So I have a lot more plans. I have an Irish festival, Irish Culture, Irish Culture Festival in Irish Culture and Heritage Festival in Bank Holiday weekend in August.
Very
And
good.
that's bringing the community together. And I'm going to have a big feature on that, is to the expats, like some my sons and daughter that have gone away, that they can come home in August, that Bank Holiday weekend, and reconnect with their friends that they went to school with. And that's another big thing that I meant to, it'll be like a come home, Newbridge come home week,
Well, you know what? Listen, whether people love you or whether people hate you, the one thing they can't argue with is you're trying your damnedest to try and bring people together and to try and reconnect people together again, which is what it's all about, Tom. And I'm going to wrap it at that. I will say this: I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, and appreciate you taking your time out of your morning to talk to me today, very openly, very frankly, and very honestly. That's Tom McDonnell. Hopefully it'll not be the last time we speak to each other again, because these problems aren't going away. I don't think you're going away, Tom, and I know I'm not going away. So I dare say it's a given that our paths will cross again at some time in the future. What do you think?
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. Yeah, it's great to talk openly and just let it out. And it's massive to meet and talk to someone from the north about. You know what I mean? It's a complete pleasure. Yeah, I hope
Brilliant.
to meet up soon again. Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
100%. Well, whatever you're away to do now, God bless you. I hope you have a great day. That's Tom McDonnell. I'm Rick Munn. This is No Risk, No Reward Media. For now, over and out.